Tonight, Robert Mueller using his subpoena power to reach deep into the heart of President Trump's businesses, as reported by the New York Times, demanding documents, including some related to Russia, from the Trump Organization, what the president previously said would cross a red line.
Would that be a breach of what his actual...
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes.
The Trump Organization insisting it's fully cooperative with all investigations and is responding to their requests. But Mueller clearly wasn't satisfied. It comes as the White House for the first time is retaliating for Moscow's meddling in the 2016 election and other malicious cyber attacks, imposing tough sanctions on 24 Russian organizations and individuals. And today, a disturbing new warning, the Department of Homeland Security and FBI announcing that Russia keeps targeting key U.S. infrastructure systems, successfully infiltrating computer networks of American energy companies, even accessing this screen, part of the controls for a power plant. How'd they do it? At times by sending around fake resumes that, once opened, allowed Russian hackers to penetrate a wide range of networks, including nuclear, water, and aviation systems. President Trump today also personally denouncing Russia for its apparent role in a poison attack on a former Russian spy on British soil.
It's a very sad situation. It certainly looks like the Russians were behind it. Something that should never, ever happen.
The U.S. joining key allies calling the attack a clear violation of international law, but not mentioned any consequences for Russia or its president.
Is Putin a friend or a foe of the United States?
I think that's something that Russia is going to have to make that determination.
Tonight, the U.S. ambassador to Russia under President Obama, a frequent Trump critic, called today's sanctions a very positive sign, telling NBC News it's not going to change Vladimir Putin's behavior. But coming from the Trump administration, he says it's a symbolically important step.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.